Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm going to start by just welcoming all of you guys. Sawadee Kap. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys this morning. Welcome to those of you guys that are here, and welcome to anyone who's joining us online as well. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group. We start with meditation, and then we move into studying the teachings of the Buddha, which I'll explain to you guys how we do that when we get to that point. But we'll just start with meditation, because everything the Buddha taught is to help you to be able to move your mind to the enlightened mental state, where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You'll no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll eliminate all these discontent feelings. And that is accomplished through training of the mind. There's other benefits too, that you'll experience focus, concentration, clarity, deep memory. Your personal and professional relationships will be blossoming. You won't have any difficulties and struggles and hostility and bitterness and argumentative nature in your relationships any longer. You won't even be in a bad mood, that all the causes and conditions that produce that have been uprooted out of the mind. So meditation is part of that, but you need to also study teachings and train your mind through understanding the teachings as well. So we'll start with meditation, since that's an important aspect of the path to enlightenment. And the way that I start this is I start with chanting to ease us into meditation. If you would like to chant along, I have the chants on a sheet over there. There's laminated sheets that you guys can see the chants, and yeah, you can help yourself get a chanting sheet if you like. There's plenty of them over there where you can see the chants that I'm going to be doing, and you're actually welcome to chant along. You'll see the English translations on there as well. And during the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. So these chants, there's nothing mystical or magical about these chants. It's not a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship, or it's not prayer or anything like that. During the lifetime of the Buddha, everything he taught was oral. And then every 2 weeks, they came together and they recited his teachings word for word for word. This is the way that they committed the teachings to memory. Nowadays, we don't need to chant in order to commit the teachings to memory, but we use chanting instead to kind of ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation, because you kind of develop some awareness of mind and awareness of the breath as you ease your mind into meditation with these chants. So if you look at the chants and you would like to chant along, you're more than welcome. Even if it's your first time, you're welcome to kind of chant along with me. You'll see the English translations on there. There's a lot of respect and gratitude and admiration for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't think the Buddha actually created these chants himself, because a Buddha wouldn't go around and say, here, chant these chants to me in order to show me admiration and respect. Because a Buddha would have eliminated his ego and his arrogance. He wouldn't be putting himself above people, right? So these chants were most likely created by his students during his life or after his death. Because if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger and the sadness and the frustration and this irritation and annoyance and all these other discontent feelings to the peace and the calm and the joy that is the enlightened mental state, you'd probably have a lot of respect for that teacher too, because the Buddha didn't want anything from his students. He didn't, try to get anything from them whatsoever. Instead, he just shared his teachings of how he got to this enlightened mental state so that other people could understand it as well. So these chants, like I mentioned, they're not anything mystical or magical. It's not a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like that. We're just using it to ease into the meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. After I do the chanting, I'm going to come in with some guidance and guiding you in the meditation. And then there'll be a period of time after that where we're just quiet and we're just all meditating together. Everyone here and anyone who's joining us online, we can just be meditating together. Then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting, okay? And then in terms of the position for you to put the body for meditation, the Buddha taught 4 different positions. It's not about everybody sitting in exactly the same position. There's multiple ways to meditate. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking positions, because your body can't be in the same position all the time. I'll give you a little bit of guidance on seated position, since all of you guys are sitting, and But just understand that there isn't just one fixed way to meditate, that there's many different options. So what I'm going to share with you is just to kind of give you some suggestions of how to be more comfortable during your meditation. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of soften your seat, and you'd like your legs to be lightly crossed. If they're real tight, this will impede the circulation and make it difficult for you to sit with the body comfortable. So you'd like your legs to just be lightly crossed. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, and that again helps the circulation. So if you like to do that, that's an option as well. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it, but again, it's not about everyone doing it the same way. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you find whatever's comfortable for you. And that's the same thing for anyone who's sitting in a chair, or maybe if you're at home, you're on a sofa or on a bench or a wheelchair, something like this. You can just sit however you're comfortable. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me, I'm sitting in a chair with my legs crossed, so you could do it that way too. And then your hands and arms, you can put them wherever you're comfortable. It's nice if the upper body is erect, because by having the sternum up and the shoulders back, it keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation so that you can actively train the mind. It also helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So having your sternum up and your shoulders back will help you to actually meditate. Because if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you are real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle, where it's comfortable, where it's not in pain and it's not in luxury, but you're comfortable so that you can keep the mind attentive and alert and easily breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting, and then I'm going to come back in with some guidance afterwards. And you guys are welcome to chant along. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakhato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Bhoto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you'd like to just establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath, not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thoughts, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you use this time to focus the mind, cutting off and letting go anytime anything arises. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุทธังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, once again, I'd like to welcome all of you guys. If you'd like to ease your way out of meditation, this will be really helpful just to kind of ease the mind out of meditation. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys here. For those of you guys that it's your first time here, I'd like to let you know that there's a bathroom in the back of the room, the very last door on the right. You're welcome to use that at any time. There's even bathrooms outside the classroom. If you go out to the parking lot, you'll see signs that take you around to the main temple bathroom. And then there's water and things over here on the table that you're welcome to help yourself to. This is provided by our students, that you're welcome to get some refreshments or whatever you like that's over there. So as I mentioned, today is our Pali Canon and English study group where we study the original words of the Buddha. And this is a program that students oftentimes move into after they've developed a foundation in some of our other programs. We have a program on Sunday and Wednesday called the Group Learning Program. What that program does is we go chapter by chapter in this book over a 7-month period. It's called Developing a Life Practice, the Path That Leads to Enlightenment. And over a 7-month period, you gradually build up your understanding of the teachings of the Buddha that move the mind to this enlightened mental state, which is where the mind's peaceful and joyful permanently. And this is a place where people oftentimes will start. We also have courses and retreats that are geared towards kind of helping you get started on the path and even moving along. We have something called Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment. We have Harmony of Relationships, Experiencing the Jhanas and the 4 stages of enlightenment. And then we have various retreats retreats that are helping you get to either the first stage of enlightenment or enlightenment itself. You can actually train your mind to progress towards this enlightened mental state. The teachings of the Buddha aren't about a bunch of beliefs. You're not believing a bunch of things, but instead you're training your mind. And these programs are all designed in a way to help you gradually build up your wisdom of how to train your mind. In this program, in the Pali Canon and English Study Group, what we do is we study volumes 2 through 13 of this book series. We have it over there on the bookshelf. It's also online. You can download it for free if you'd like. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon if your country has access to Amazon. And what students are doing is they're gradually making their way through understanding the teachings of the Buddha and implementing those into your life. What you're doing is you're learning, examining, you're investigating his teachings, you're reflecting on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false, and then you're practicing his teachings to integrate them into your life on a day-to-day basis. And what you're doing is you're training your mind to uproot certain pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind. He discovered these 10 individual pollutions, and when you eradicate these out of the mind, this is where the brightness and the radiance of the enlightened mind can start shining through. You'll notice that the mind becomes more cheerful. You'll notice all kinds of benefits in the mind, as I've been kind of mentioning throughout our class. So what we do in this program is we're in chapter 111 of the volume 3. Volume 3 is titled Foundation in the Teachings. And this is a book that has a lot of different teachings from the Buddha. And what we do in this program is we have student here at the temple or online through Zoom volunteer to read the individual chapter. This one is about a page, maybe 2 pages. Yeah, 2 pages. And then what I do is after a student reads, then I will share some teachings on that particular chapter. Then I will open up to any and all questions that you guys have. And then we just kind of go chapter by chapter. This is more like a study group, where the other programs that I teach is more of a traditional style of learning, where I'll be teaching for like 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then I open up for questions, and then I teach another 15, 20, 30 minutes and open up for questions, where this one is more of a study group, where if you've already laid down a really good foundation of the teachings of the Buddha, this program kind of fills in that framework and really helps you to more fully understand the teachings of the Buddha. So you'll see how this goes as we actually progress forward. If you guys would like to volunteer to read here at the temple, or if you have questions, we have microphones in the white bowl right there in front of the camera. All you need to do is get a microphone, press the gray button. You'll see the lights on the microphone come on, and then you just hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. If you spoke here without a microphone, they wouldn't be able to hear you online. And then for those of you guys on Zoom, if you would like to volunteer to read, you can electronically raise your hand, and then once you raise your hand, I'll see that, and then you can unmute your microphone and you'll be able to read, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. And then if you're on and then if you'd like to ask questions, whether you're here, you can use the microphones. Whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, if you'd like to ask questions, you can put that into the comment section and I'll be able to see that. And if you're in Zoom, you can ask questions by electronically raising your hand as well. So it looks like Marcy has volunteered to read. So we'll go ahead and turn it over to Marcy. If you'd like to open up your microphone, you can read for us.
Thank you, Teacher David. Noble Eightfold Path, the way of practicing leading to the elimination of discontentedness. And what, monks, is the noble truth of the way of practicing leading to the elimination of discontentedness? It is just this noble eightfold path, namely right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. And what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view. And what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention.
Can I pause you here for a second, Marcy? I'm going to pause you at the end of each section of wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline, just so I can teach a little bit, because this is a pretty in-depth teaching. So this is called the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha that you would need to learn in order to be able to make your way to enlightenment. And I teach this in all of our foundational programs and all of our other retreats and stuff like this, because it's such a core central teaching that you need to know inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. You really need to know it like the back of your hand in order to be able to get to enlightenment. There's 3 individual sections. There's the wisdom section, the moral conduct section, and the mental discipline section. Tomorrow in the group learning program, I'll be teaching the mental discipline section. But here, there's 8 individual factors. And Marcy just read the first 2, which comprise the wisdom section, right view and right intention. And what you can think about with this Eightfold Path is it's kind of like 8 individual dials that if you had a speaker system and you were trying to get a better and better quality sound out of these speakers, you would dial these and tweak these dials in order to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers. And it's the same kind of thing if you're trying to fine tune your mind, which is what the teachings of the Buddha do, is you're purifying your mind and having it perform optimally. You have these 8 dials that you kind of tweak in order to get a better and performing mind. So here with right view and right intention, the Buddha is helping you to understand 2 important aspects of the path. And I usually take 2.5 hours to be able to teach the entire Eightfold Path. So I'm not going to really be able to teach it to you in the same way that I normally do in all of our foundational classes. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of give you a little bit of overview of each step as we're working our way through here. So right view, what this is it's actually, he's pointing to the Four Noble Truths. There's another teaching that integrates into this, and there's multiple teachings that integrate into the Eightfold Path. The Four Noble Truths is the very first teaching of the Buddha. It explains to you the problem in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. The problem that you're experiencing in the unenlightened state is you have conditioned feelings, meaning if you have something that you want or you expect, you'll get happy, you'll get excited. This is conditional happiness or conditioned pleasant feelings, that you get happy or excited when you get what you want. But then when you don't get what you want, you get painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and things like this. This is the problem in the unenlightened mind, is that it's going up and down and up and down. It's forming its inner feelings based on some condition. So for example, if it's sunny outside, you might get happy and excited, but then when it's raining, you get sad or frustrated. But then if your bank account is up here, you're happy and excited, but then when it goes down here, you get sad and frustrated. These are called conditional feelings, that based on some condition, your mind forms a feeling. And this is the problem that the Buddha discovered, because as long as you allow this to continue, your mind's just going to be going up and down all throughout your life, and you'll find it difficult and find struggles in the world as you're trying to approach any particular situation. You'll experience stress and anxiety and fears and guilt and shame and loneliness and boredom and all these different feelings. This is the problem. Oftentimes people think that these feelings are being caused by other people, or you think that, oh, this is just the human condition. This is just the way humans are. And you just maybe have accepted the fact that you actually experience this. But there's actually a way to solve this. And the Buddha teaches you in the Four Noble Truths first what the problem is, but then he teaches you the cause of that problem, because you need to understand what's causing it so that you can then fix it. What's causing this problem is what's called craving, desire, attachment. It's longing, yearning. It's the mind chasing after the objects of its affection, wanting things to be a certain way. The mind thinks that something external is going to provide some lasting satisfaction, so the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst. It's like the mind thinks that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it. So maybe if you feel lonely or bored, you might think, I know what'll solve this. Let me get a new boyfriend or girlfriend. If I get a boyfriend or girlfriend, that'll solve all my boredom and all my loneliness. And let me chase after that for a while. And now you chase after that and you get that person in your life and you feel great for a few months, but then it fades away. right? Or you say, oh, I know what I need. I need more money. That's what's going to solve everything. Let me get more money. And now you chase after that for a while. And then maybe you get that, and then you're happy for a period of time, but then it fades away and your mind ends up right back in the painful feelings. Or it might be more shoes or more jewelry or a brand new phone or a new computer or something like this. The mind is just going to chase and chase and chase and chase and chase. And if the mind gets what it wants, it gets happy. But it's temporary happiness, because when that condition changes, now your mind's going to end up in the painful feelings. And when you're chasing after things, again, if you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings. But if you don't get what you want, you get the painful feelings. And see, what the mind thinks in the unenlightened state is when you're experiencing that anger and frustration and sadness and all those other feelings, the mind thinks that someone else is causing it. You might think your mom or your brothers or sisters, or your dad or your coworkers or your boss are annoying you or frustrating you or agitating you, when in reality, it's in your own mind. That's what the Buddha is teaching you in the second noble truth, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And his teachings aren't to be believed. You can independently verify this. If you think about a recent time when you've been angry or frustrated or sad, you can look at it and you can see that if you would have got what you wanted in that situation, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, you got angry or sad or frustrated. It might have been this morning or yesterday or last week. You can look at your own situations and you can independently verify for yourself that your mind is causing these feelings. So understanding the cause is very important, because then the third noble truth explains to you the elimination. Because if you didn't understand what was causing it, you wouldn't be able to eliminate it. So you need to be able to see with wisdom what's truly causing your feelings. Because as long as you have a misunderstanding and you have lack of wisdom, you're going to push people away out of your life thinking that that solves the problem. But that doesn't solve the problem, because when you push people out of your life, you still get bored, you still get lonely, you still get frustrated, you still get annoyed. If they were the true problem, when you push them out of your life, your mind would be peaceful and joyful from that point forward. Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile to them through your intentions, your speech, or your actions. You might be angry and bitter and argumentative, and now people choose to leave out of your life. Or you might put your expectations on people. You might try to control people and try to force them to do things your way. You might have been in arguments before where you were adamantly trying to convince somebody that what they were doing was making you angry, and they had to stop doing what they were doing, or else you were going to continue to be angry. So as long as you don't have the wisdom of the second noble truth that your own mind is causing these feelings, you can't live harmoniously with all beings. You're going to keep pushing people away. You'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile with people, and they'll choose to leave out of your life. Or you'll put your expectations on people and they'll feel pressured and they'll choose to leave out of your life, right? So you can actually transform all of this if you understand the third noble truth. That the third noble truth is that to eliminate discontentedness, you just need to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments in your mind where you're longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of your affection. That's one side of the spectrum. But also if you're over here where you are indifferent and you could care less about what was going on in your life and you had no goals and no aspirations, you're not going to be peaceful there either. So there's this middle way where you gradually work towards your goals, objectives, or interests without craving, without longing, yearning, without forming your inner feelings based on some condition. And this is where the training comes in, because the fourth noble truth explains to you the way to accomplish this is the eightfold path. So in the first teaching of the Buddha, he lays out the problem, which is the mind is discontent. He lays out the cause of that, which is craving, desire, attachment. The mind's longing, yearning. He explains to you the elimination of it is to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And he explains the way to do that, and the plan and the path forward is the eightfold path. That's the way to actually completely transform the mind to eliminate the cravings, desires, attachments. So the eightfold path is a core central teaching of the Buddha that everything else plugs into. And then we've got right intention, which is explaining the intention of renunciation, where you're training your mind to let go and give up its false beliefs, its false opinions, because there's certain beliefs in your mind right now that aren't actually true. That you might believe that other people are causing you to be angry, you might believe that other people are causing you to be frustrated. But when you get rid of that belief and you see with true wisdom what is really truly occurring, then you can actually solve your problem. But if you didn't have the intention or the thinking or the thought of renunciation, where you're willing to let go of your false beliefs and opinions, you would never get to enlightenment, because you're just holding on to what you currently believe, right? So by the time you get to enlightenment, you don't have any beliefs whatsoever. You've brought in wisdom to be able to see the truth about the world around you. So you're not getting rid of your false beliefs by bringing in new beliefs. That's not what the teachings of the Buddha are. You're bringing in wisdom to be able to see the truth. And when you see the truth, you're getting rid of these false beliefs. Like the false belief that we all carry when we were unenlightened and we're lacking wisdom is that other people are causing you to be angry or frustrated or irritated. So you need to have the intention of renunciation to let go of the things that are unwholesome in your life and the false beliefs, the things that are no longer serving you well. And you do that through acquiring wisdom. Then the intention of non-ill will is to have active goodwill towards all beings, where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. And you have the intention or the thinking or the thought of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Because as long as you're causing harm to others, this harm is going to come back to you. This is based in the natural law of karma, or some people call it karma. It's not punishment and rewards, or it's not mystical or magical. It's not some black cloud following you around. There's no being that's, kind of orchestrating this. It's not even about who's to blame or who's at fault. It's just helping you to see that there's a cause and effect, or an action and result. And when you make wise decisions, you will experience wholesome results. And when you make unwise decisions, you will experience unwholesome results. So if you're putting out harm, where you're harming other beings, this harm is then going to come back to you. So the Buddha is teaching you to cultivate the thinking or the thought or the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested in causing harm. And now this is what you're building the next part that Marcy is going to read on, which is the moral conduct section. And now when you understand that it's your own mind that is causing these feelings, and that you need wisdom to be able to now navigate the world and do things in a harmless way, the Buddha is now teaching you the moral conduct that's going to ensure that you're not causing harm. These aren't rules or commandments. These are the natural laws of helping you to be able to see this cause and effect, or this action and result. So Marcy, if you'd like to pick it up from there, we can pick it up from here.
Thank you, Teacher David, for that explanation. Monks is right speech, refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech. And what monks is right action? Refraining from taking of life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. And what monks is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood.
Okay, so this is the moral conduct section, because there's certain things that you're doing in your conduct, your speech, your actions, and maybe your livelihood that you're causing harm to others. And you maybe just don't even realize that this is what you're doing, because you might lack wisdom of this natural law of karma, of cause and effect. So for example, here you can see the Buddha talks about eliminating harsh speech. This is something that we do in the unenlightened state with the lack of wisdom. We're harsh and bitter and hostile through our tone, our tempo, and our word choice. And now you're just damaging your relationships. And when you put that out into the world, maybe with your mom or dad or your brothers and sisters, your life partner, your children, this is all just going to come back to you. That in those relationships, they're going to be very bitter and hostile and harsh. And if you're interested in getting to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life, you need to understand the wisdom of how to interact with people in a wise way that doesn't cause harm, so that then harm doesn't come back to you and people aren't being bitter and harsh and hostile with you. But as long as you're bitter and harsh and hostile, that's the way people are going to be with you from time to time. But if you would like to transform that, you are going to need to train your own mind. Sometimes we think that, we want mom to change, or we want dad to change, or brothers and sisters, and why don't they just change, right? But it's you that needs to actually do the work. If you do the work and you do the change, you'll see that the people in your life will start to slowly change around you. But if you just want other people to do the work and do the change, and you're not willing to do any work and change, then things don't get better. So the Buddha here is teaching you the moral conduct of what causes harm in the world so that you can gain this wisdom and then transform your mind. It's kind of like if you have a pipe that is exploded and maybe it's spewing oil or water all over the place, you would like to shut that down so that you're no longer spewing this water or oil all over the place. And that's what's essentially happening when you have a lack of wisdom, is you're spewing this unwholesome and unwise moral conduct into the world. And now when it's coming back to you, you might be blaming other people. Like, look at mom, she's so angry. How dare her talk to me like that? She doesn't have a right to talk to me like that. Or why is my coworker talking to me like that? I don't deserve that. Right? Well, if you're putting that out into the world, that's what's going to come back to you. But if you can learn how to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful through your speech and your actions, and you're conducting a livelihood where you're not causing any harm to others, you will see that by shutting down, spewing the oil and water all over the world, that you won't have a mess any longer. But as long as you're spewing this all over the world, you're going to have this mess to clean up. Right? So I'm not going to go through each one of these in detail, but I do that in our other programs. And it's been recorded many times. It's in the books and all these things. You can learn the moral conduct section so that you can understand the wisdom behind what's going to lead to harmonious relationships. Because as long as you lack this wisdom, you're going to continue to have problems in your relationships over and over. If you're noticing that you're having like people that are coming in and out of your life, and you're having a relationship and then they go away from you and these kinds of things, this is the reason why, is because you're not functioning in a way that is wholesome moral conduct and wise moral conduct. If you're being bitter and harsh and hostile in these relationships, people aren't going to stick around for that. They're going to leave out of your life. So you'd like to be able to investigate this and learn it really closely, as well as the livelihood, because the Buddha teaches you about how to sustain your life and have an income without causing harm to others. And there's deeper teachings. This is just kind of like a structure, but then underneath of all of this, there's deeper teachings that I share in all the resources that I teach in the various classes and courses. So let's move on to right effort in the mental discipline section, Marcy.
Thank you. And what monks is right effort? Here, monks. A monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to full perfection of development. This is called right effort. And what monks is right mindfulness? Here, monks. A monk resides reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware, and mindful. Having put aside craving and worry of the world, he resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful. Having put aside craving and worry of the world, he resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful. Having put aside craving and worry of the world, he resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. And what monks is right concentration? Here, a monk, distant from sense desire, distant from unwholesome mental states, enters and resides in the first jhana, which is with thinking and pondering, based in seclusion, filled with excitement and joy, and with the subsiding of thinking and pondering, by gaining inner tranquility and oneness of mind, he enters and resides in the second jhana, which is without thinking and pondering, based in concentration, filled with excitement and joy. And with the fading away of excitement, remaining imperturbable, unable to upset or excited, calm, serene, mindful, and clearly aware, he experiences himself the joy of which the Noble One says, "Peaceful is he who resides with equanimity and mindfulness." He enters the third jhana, and having given up pleasure and pain, and with a fading away of former gladness and sadness, he enters and resides in the fourth jhana, which is beyond pleasure and pain, and purified by equanimity and mindfulness. This is called right concentration. And that, monks, is called the way of practicing leading to the elimination of discontentedness.
Okay, thank you, Marcy. So here we've got the mental discipline section, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is something I'm going to teach tomorrow morning. Starting at 9 o'clock, we're going to do meditation. Then I'm going to actually teach this in detail in the traditional style of learning, where I'm going to be teaching for a period of time and then opening up for questions with each one of these steps. So if you'd like to learn this, tomorrow would be a great time for you to be able to come, because this is what's going to allow you to put the moral conduct into place. You wouldn't be able to just go out into the world and immediately start speaking gentle, right? If you're used to speaking harsh with certain people, you're not going to be able to go out into the world and just snap your fingers and magically start practicing where you're speaking gentle to everybody around you. You're going to need some training of the mind, and this is what's going to help you to do that. And this is the words of the Buddha, and for someone who studies it and understands it, it makes perfect sense. But if you haven't studied it and you don't understand it, it can seem a little bit, misunderstood, or you don't really have an understanding of what it actually is. So that's why tomorrow I'm going to walk you through this. These are 3 steps that you need in order to really develop the mind and discipline it and be able to control it. Because right now, when you're harsh and bitter and hostile, you can't control your mind. When you're angry, when you're sad, when you're feeling guilty or shameful or bored or lonely, you don't have control over your mind in that situation. The mind is controlling you. So you would like to gain more and more control or discipline over the mind, and this is the way that you'll be able to do that. So I'm going to teach it to you tomorrow, because it's quite in-depth and quite detailed to be able to even give you an overview of this. Okay, so let me see if you guys have any questions on this chapter, the Noble Eightfold Path. If there's any questions here, you could use the microphones. If you're online, you can put it in the Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any questions that you like. So does anybody have any questions on anything we just discussed? Okay, I'm just going to check Facebook and YouTube here. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere. Okay, so now we'll move on to the next one. Is there someone who would like to volunteer to read this? By the way, what you've got is you've got the words of the Buddha here. Then you've got a reference. This reference takes you back to the original source teachings of the Buddha. There's 45 large volumes of books that are this thick. It's called the Pali Canon. And that takes you back to the original teachings. So you can see that this is indeed from the original Pali Canon. It's just a translation in English. Then you've got words from me to be able to help you to reflect on this and be able to understand it. The Buddha teaches very clear and very concise and very precise, but it helps to have a dedicated practitioner and teacher to guide you through it. So that's what these words are here for. Here I'm explaining what a jhana is, what the jhanas are, because that's something that people need understanding on. So that's in the books here. And then each chapter is set up that way where you'll see that. So these are all the words that I'm sharing here to help you guys understand the jhanas. And now we've got chapter 112. Is there someone who would like to read this? Pat? Okay, go ahead, sir.
Where earth, water, fire, and wind find no footing. Once, Kavada, in this order of monks, the thought occurred to a certain monk. I wonder where the 4 great elements, the earth element, the water element, the fire element, and the wind element are eliminated without remainders. And what monk attained to such a state of mental concentration that the way to the heavenly realm appeared before him? And that monk attained to such a state of mental concentration that the way to the heavenly realm appeared before him. He went to the heavenly realm of the 4 great kings and asked the question. When none of them could answer the question, the monk went to the 33 gods who said, "We don't know. Saka, the heavenly beings, may know." Saka told the monk to ask the Yama heavenly beings the Suyama, the Tusita, heavenly beings, the Santusita, Ranati. Man,
you can just we can see it. You can skip over it.
Thanks. The great Brahma avoided to answer and finally said that the heavenly beings believe there is nothing Brahma does not know, but the truth is he does not know where the four great elements cease without remainder. It is the monk's fault that he did not ask the perfectly enlightened one. In the end, the monk went back to the perfectly enlightened one. So that monk, as swiftly as a strong man might flex or unflex his arm, vanished from the Brahma world and appeared in my presence. He prostrated himself before me, then sat down to one side and said, "Venerable Sir, where are the four great elements? The earth element, the water element, the fire element, and the wind element, eliminated without remainder." I replied, "Monk, once upon a time, sea-traveling merchants, when they set sail on the ocean, took in their ship a land-sighting bird. When they could not see the land themselves, they released the bird. The bird flew to the east, to the south, to the west, to the north. It flew to the zenith overhead and to the intermediate points of the compass. If it saw land anywhere, it flew there. But if it saw no land, it returned to the ship. In the same way, monk, you have been as far as the Brahma world searching for an answer to your question and not finding it, and now you come back to me. But, monk, you should not ask your question in this way. Where are the four great elements? The earth element, the water element, the fire element, and the wind element eliminated without remainder. Instead, this is how the question should have been put. Where do earth, water, fire, and wind find no footing? Where are long and short, small and great, fair and foul, where are name and form wholly destroyed? And the answer is, where consciousness is quieted, immeasurable, all radiant, that's where earth, water, fire, and wind find no footing. They're both long and short, small and great, fair and foul, their name and form are wholly destroyed. With the elimination of consciousness, this is all destroyed.
Okay, thank you, Pat. So this particular teaching takes a certain amount of understanding of other teachings of the Buddha to be able to understand. First, this earth, water, fire, and wind, this is how they would refer to the physical body during that time frame. That nowadays we talk about cells and molecules and elements and things like this, where they didn't have that wisdom 2,500 years ago. So they would basically categorize the body into four elements. The earth element is like the solids of the body, like your teeth, your bones, your fingernails, things like this. This is the earth element. And then the water element are the fluids of the body, like the blood, the urine, the saliva, the tears, pus, mucus, things like this. Then you've got the fire element. This is like the heat of the body. It's associated with digestion a lot. And then you've got the wind element, which is the movement, like the feces moving through the colon or the blood moving through the veins. This is the wind element. So they would describe the body through these four elements, and then they would diagnose any kind of medical illnesses through these four elements, and then they would treat it with herbal medicine. Even today here in Thailand, their traditional Thai medicine is diagnosing through the four elements, and then they're prescribing herbal remedies through the four elements as well. So whenever you see the Buddha talking about the four elements, he's talking about the actual physical body. And you also know that from this other part that he's talking about down here, where he talks about name and form. When he talks about name and form, this is also referring to the physical body. He describes what name and form is in his other teachings, and it's basically the physical body. Okay, so what this person is asking him is, he's saying, where is it that these four great elements are eliminated without remainder? Meaning, where is it that we stop being reborn over and over and over again, where we don't experience rebirth, right? And then the Buddha explains how, or actually the person who's writing this down explains how this person tried to find an answer in many different places. And they're talking about this cosmology of these different places, these different realms that someone went to look in order to find the answer. And they couldn't find the answer, so they came back to the Buddha and they're looking for this answer from the Buddha. And now the Buddha basically explains to them, this isn't necessarily the way that he recommends to ask the question. Instead, he recommends that you ask the question in this way, that where do earth, water, fire, and wind find no footing? Meaning that this physical body isn't continually being reborn over and over and over again. How do you get to the point where there is no longer any rebirth? Right? And then the Buddha says, okay, the way that you know where name and form is destroyed, meaning that there's no longer any rebirth, is that it's when consciousness is quieted. It's immeasurable. It's all radiant. That's where you get to the point where there's actually no more rebirth, right? That when you train your mind and you eliminate the causes and conditions that are producing discontentedness, like anger, sadness, and frustration, it's the same causes and conditions that are leading to rebirth. As long as there's fuel in the mind, that there's a cause and condition that leads to anger and sadness and frustration, this is going to also lead to rebirth as well. This craving, desire, attachment that's causing the anger and the sadness and the frustration, this is the same cause that leads to rebirth. If you have this anger and this bitterness and this hostility, or you want and expect things in the world to be a certain way, you're going to keep being reborn over and over. Let me give you an analogy so you can understand. If you had a fire that had logs on it and it was burning and there was like all these flames and sparks coming off of this fire, as long as there's fuel in the fire, it's going to send off sparks. And when the sparks are being sent off, it's going to be carried by the wind, and then it's going to land and it's going to ignite a new fire. So as long as there's fuel in the fire, there's going to be a new fire. Because when these sparks come off the fire, it's going to land and create a new fire. So as long as you have fuel in your mind, it's going to send off a spark that then creates a new consciousness. And when that new consciousness is created, it's going to have to find a new body, right? So when there's an egg and a sperm, then the third thing is that there's a consciousness that comes together, and now there's actually a living being. But if there's no consciousness, then there can't be a rebirth. So what the Buddha is explaining is that if you train your mind and you get the mind to the point where the consciousness is quieted, where it's all radiant, where it's peaceful and joyful, you've eliminated craving, desire, attachment in your mind. By eliminating craving, desire, attachment, your mind is peaceful and joyful. And that craving, desire, attachment is the same thing that leads to rebirth. And you'll be able to see as you're training your mind that your mind's becoming more and more and more and more peaceful. So all the teachings of the Buddha are independently verifiable, even the cycle of rebirth. Oftentimes people don't know how to verify the cycle of rebirth, but this is something you can do as you're learning on the path to enlightenment. You can learn how to independently verify the cycle of rebirth. And when you see that craving, desire, attachment is producing discontent feelings, and you're noticing that as you're starting to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, your mind's becoming more quieted, it's becoming more bright and more radiant and more cheerful, you'll know that you're headed in the right direction and the mind's getting closer and closer to enlightenment. And you also know that you're eliminating the causes and conditions that is producing the rebirth as well. There's other teachings where the Buddha talks specifically, and he says craving, desire, attachment is what's causing rebirth. It's the fuel that causes rebirth. Here, he's just kind of explaining a certain aspect of that it's when the consciousness is quieted, it's immeasurable, it's all radiant. What he's talking about here is enlightenment, that when the mind's enlightened, that the causes and conditions that are producing discontentedness have been eliminated. And if you've studied his other teachings, you know that the same cause and condition that's producing discontentedness is also causing rebirth as well. And when you eliminate that, there's not going to be another rebirth. So the ultimate goal is not to get to heaven, not to have this wonderful afterlife. You're not believing a bunch of teachings and hoping something good happens when you die. The teachings of the Buddha are about learning now in the present moment, reflecting to verify the teachings and practicing them. And because you're learning now, reflecting now, and practicing now, you see the results now in this life. You'll see your mind becoming more peaceful, your relationships becoming more joyful and more at ease. So the Buddha's explaining this aspect of that when you eliminate the consciousness, when you eliminate the causes and conditions that are leading to a new consciousness, you will eliminate the continuous rebirth in the cycle of rebirth. Okay, so any questions on this chapter? I think people are getting cold, huh? Any questions on this one? Marcy, you still have your hand up. I don't know if that's a new question or if that's from volunteering to read. If you have a question, you're welcome to ask.
Sorry, Teacher David, that was from reading.
Okay.
I forgot to take it down.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so let's see. All right, so now we'll move into the next chapter. So here you can see the words that I have here. I'm explaining what each one of these elements are. I'm explaining some different aspects of the teachings. This is where the Buddha explains what name and form is. So I'm giving you each thing that you need to be able to understand these teachings. Okay, who would like to read this one? This is a short one. This is a good person. If you're practicing English and you'd like to practice a little English, this would be a good one for you. Everybody's shy. Yeah, that's what happens when the mind has craving. It's shy. One of the ways that you eliminate shyness is you put the mind in the situation that it doesn't want to be in, and then it will actually eliminate its shyness. So Marcy might be able to comment on that because she was probably shy at some point in her life. Go ahead, Marcy. You'd like to read this one?
Sure, Teacher David. Thank you. Where consciousness is quieted, immeasurable, all radiant. That's where earth, water, fire, and wind find no footing. Both long and short, small and great, fair and foul. Their name and form are wholly destroyed. With the elimination of consciousness, this is all destroyed.
Okay, so we just talked about this one. It's just kind of a shorter version of it. So we'll move on to the next one. There's someone who would like to read this? Or Marcy, maybe you'd like to just go ahead and read this one too.
Sure, I can read it.
Okay.
Monks, there are these three characteristics that define the condition. What three? A rising is seen, a vanishing is seen, and its alteration while in is seen. These are the three characteristics that define the condition.
Okay, and then can you read this next one? Because this next one is connected to that too.
Sure. The unconditioned. Monks, there are these three characteristics that define the unconditioned. What three? No arising is seen, no vanishing is seen, and no alteration while in persistence is seen. These are the three characteristics that define the unconditioned.
Okay, thank you, Marcy. All right, so I'm going to go back up here. What the Buddha is doing in his teachings is he's explaining to you the way the world is. He's not explaining to you the way the world should be. And here's a bunch of rules and commandments and everybody follow these and then the world will become peaceful. He's explaining to you the way the world is. Because the reason why the mind struggles and has difficulties in the world is because you live in a world that you don't understand, right? That when you go out into the world and you have all these difficulties and struggles, the mind just lacks wisdom and it just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. So when you awaken to the wisdom of how the world is, when you understand the natural laws, you can navigate the world more peacefully. But when you live in a world you don't understand, you'll struggle and you have difficulties. If you've ever watched the news and you're like, I just don't understand why those people keep doing that. Or if your parents or your siblings are doing things, you're just like, I just don't understand why they keep doing that, right? This is because your mind lives in a world that you don't understand. So what the Buddha is doing throughout his teachings is he's explaining the natural laws of existence, and you don't believe them. You learn them, you reflect on them to verify them, and you practice them, and then you can see that your mind's becoming more peaceful and joyful because you understand the world you live in and you can navigate it. So this is a central teaching to the Buddha. It's called the universal truth of impermanence. He's explaining to you that all conditioned objects are going to arise, they're going to change, and they're going to fade away. These are called conditioned objects. Anything you can see, hear, smell, anything that you can taste, flavors, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, they are conditioned objects. They arise, they change, and they fade away. They are impermanent, meaning not permanent. And the reason why this is so important to understand is that in the unenlightened mind, It craves permanence. It wants things to be permanent. So when you're in that relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend and you guys are together, it's like, wow, I'm getting what I want. This feels great. I feel so happy and excited. But then when you guys break up, you're experiencing impermanence. And the mind craves permanence. It wants this relationship to be permanent. And that's why you get angry or frustrated or feel lonely or bored, because your mind's holding on and craving this permanence. As long as your mind's craving permanence, but you live in an impermanent world, you will have difficulties and struggles. Or say you get a brand new car and you park it at a store, you go inside and you come out and you see a scratch on your car. The scratch is impermanence. The car cannot be permanently beautiful. But when the mind gets frustrated and angry, you might think it's the scratch that's causing it, or you might think it's the person who scratched your car. But what's actually causing it is that craving, desire, attachment. The mind is craving permanence. It's wanting this car to be permanently beautiful, when in reality, you live in an impermanent world. This car, the paint's going to fade, the tires are going to need to be changed, the upholstery is going to maybe get ripped or torn. And if your mind craves permanence, you will be angry or frustrated or annoyed when these kinds of things are going on. So if you don't understand that everything around you is impermanent, your mind's going to keep craving permanence and wanting things to be permanent. And now when someone dies in your life, you'll grieve and you'll be sorrow and you'll be sad. You'll think that that maybe is your love that's causing that, but it's actually not the love. The love is, I would like to see this person be well. I have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. But what's causing the anger and the sadness or the loneliness or boredom or the grief or sorrow, this pleasure, is the mind's craving permanence. So you need to be able to see and independently verify that everything around you is impermanent. And you can see that with your human body. You see the body's always constantly changing. You can see your relationships are constantly changing. You can see your bank account is constantly changing. It's going up and down, right? Or maybe up, or down, right? Depending on who you are, right? You can look all around the world. You can see the weather is constantly changing, but yet the mind craves permanence. That's why when you see it's sunny, you get so happy. But then when you experience that change, when it's now raining, you get frustrated, because you're craving permanence. When your bank account's up here, you get so happy, but then it goes down here and you get frustrated. It's because you're craving permanence. So the Buddha is teaching you that all things are essentially, all conditioned objects are impermanent. Anything you can see, hear, smell, taste that comes in contact with the body, or anything that goes through the mind. But then he's teaching you this unconditioned, that there are unconditioned objects in the world too. Enlightenment itself is unconditioned. That by the time you train your mind and you purify your mind is now unconditioned. That there's no longer any conditions in the mind that are causing these temporary feelings. There's the condition of craving, desire, attachment in your mind that is causing the conditioned feelings. So if you base your happiness on the sun, because the sun is impermanent, your happiness is impermanent too. Your happiness is going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. If you base your happiness on your bank account is impermanent. So when it's here, you'll be happy, but when that changes, you'll be sad or frustrated or agitated. So there are unconditioned objects in the world. Enlightenment is unconditioned. You've eliminated and purified your mind. You've eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing these feelings to occur. That your mind no longer is going up and down and up and down. Your mind is just always peaceful and always joyful. The natural laws themselves that the Buddha taught, those are permanent. That's why his teachings are timeless. What he taught 2,500 years ago is just as applicable today as it was 2,500 years ago, because these natural laws haven't actually changed, right? So one of the jokes in the Buddhist community is, what is permanent? Impermanence is permanent, right? Like, you're going to always experience impermanence, right? This is a natural law. It's a universal truth. So these teachings that the Buddha taught, they're timeless because he's describing these natural laws. So it's important to be able to understand this universal truth of impermanence. So now you can see what your mind's doing, and then you can train it to not crave permanence. Okay. So Marcy, looks like you have a question. If you'd like to go ahead.
Thank you, Teacher David. In the third sentence, in the section, and no alteration while it. Would you pronounce that word for me? And then if you wouldn't mind defining it in that sentence for me?
Yeah, it's persist. So what he's saying is there's no arising seen, there's no vanishing, meaning it doesn't disappear, and that while it's existing, there's no change, there's no alteration.
Okay.
So
Thank you, teacher.
So what I say is there's no arising, there's no changing, and there's no fading away. But the Buddha is saying it a little bit different. He's saying there's no arising, there's no vanishing, and then while it's existing, it doesn't change. This is called unconditioned. It's an unconditioned object.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Let's see. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. Let me see what the next chapter is. Yeah, we'll finish up with this chapter. This will be our last one. Does somebody like to read this one? You'll take it, Pat? Okay, go for it. That mic sounds like the batteries are starting to give out. You might need to grab another mic. It was kind of crackling on you.
Seeing non-self with correct wisdom. Monks, form is impermanent. Feeling is impermanent. Perception is impermanent. Volitional formations, choices, and decisions are impermanent. Consciousness is impermanent. What is impermanent is discontentedness. What is discontentedness in non-self? What is non-self should be seen as it really is with correct wisdom thus. This is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. When one sees this thus as it really is with correct wisdom, one holds no more views concerning the past. When one holds no more views concerning the past, one holds no more views concerning the future. When one holds no more views concerning the future, one has no more stubborn craving. When one has no more stubborn craving, the mind becomes free from strong feelings towards form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness is liberated from the taints by non-clinging. By being liberated, the mind is steady. By being steady, the mind is content. By being content, one is not agitated. Being unagitated, one personally attains nibbana, enlightenment. One understands, destroyed is birth. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more for this state of existence.
Okay, thank you, sir. There's a bunch of different teachings here that are embedded in this, and I'll kind of walk you guys through. This first thing that he's talking about, these are called the 5 aggregates, or the 5 criteria, or the 5 collections, or the 5 elements. What these are the 5 things that make a living being a living being. Because you need to know what a living being is, because as long as you're causing harm to living beings, then this harm is going to come back to you. So he's teaching you in other teachings, these 5 aggregates, so that you can ensure that you're not causing harm to any living beings. Every living being is going to have 5 things. They're going to have physical form. You can verify this as I'm talking to you because you know you're a living being. You can see you have physical form, right? Then you're going to have feelings, right? This is like the happiness, the excitement, the elation, the painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, the neither painful nor pleasant feelings like shyness or discomfort. This is what a unenlightened being is going to be experiencing, and this is what a living being is going to have, is the feelings aggregate. Then there's perceptions. What perceptions are is like your views and opinions about the world. If you have views and opinions about the world, you look out at the world in a certain way, this is a perception. Then there's volitional formations, which are choices and decisions. That's what a living being is going to have, free will, essentially, to be able to make their own free will decisions. And then there's consciousness. Consciousness is the mind. So you can see that you have all 5 of these. And like a squirrel and a rabbit and a snake, they have all 5 of these aggregates. And that's how you know that they're an actual living being. And what the Buddha is saying is all these things are impermanent. This physical body, it's impermanent. And it's helpful for you to know that, because you'll tend to cling to it and want it to be permanent. You might crave permanent youthfulness, right? Or you might crave permanent health, or you might crave permanent existence. You might want to exist for forever. And the Buddha is teaching you, like, this physical body is impermanent. You're going to get wrinkles. You're going to get moles. You're going to get pimples. You're going to get gray hair. You're going to get a little, maybe extra fat here and there, or maybe a lot of extra fat here and there, right? So this physical form is impermanent. Those feelings that you experience, they're impermanent too. So when that anger is arising, it will change and it will fade away, right? And you need to be able to know this, because sometimes you get so angry and you're just holding on and holding on and holding on. But if you understand that it's impermanent, then you understand that you can transform the mind. You can eliminate it. It's not permanent. You can train your mind to no longer experience those discontent feelings. Then your perceptions, it's important to understand those are impermanent too. Your perceptions about the world are constantly changing. But if you cling to your perceptions, you're going to have problems, because, like, say you have certain political views and you have certain perceptions that you're holding on to, and now you get involved with your family or your friends and you're holding on to your views and opinions, and now you're adamantly arguing with other people, trying to convince them to agree with you. And now this is going to cause problems in your life. You would like to get to the point where you're not out there adamantly trying to convince people to understand the world in the same way as you. The more you do that, it's just going to produce arguments and difficulties in your relationships. So the Buddha teaches you to not cling to these things like your perceptions. That's why he's teaching you that, hey, these things are impermanent. Don't cling to it and want it to be permanent. Then there's volitional formations, or choices and decisions. These are impermanent too, but sometimes we cling to these. This is what I was talking about yesterday in the Song Tao, right? Like, maybe we can make a decision 10 months in advance that we're going to travel to Australia. And now we might cling to that decision. We might hold on to it in the unenlightened state, wanting it to be permanent. And now, maybe 2 months before the trip, maybe we've had a financial downturn and we don't have the money to go any longer. And if you cling to your decision and you go, it might put you in a financial difficult situation. Whereas if you don't cling to your decision, and you're like, you know what, I can just cancel my trip. I'll get a refund and I don't need to go. Right? I can just stay where I'm at. I don't have to continue on this journey to go to Australia. But if you cling to your decision, you'll feel frustrated. You'll feel irritated or annoyed that you can't go to Australia. So the Buddha is teaching you that all your decisions are impermanent. The other thing you might do is, say you're planning something 10 months in advance, and now you make a decision now, and now you're maybe planning some event 10 months from now. But then between now and then, you're going to experience a whole lot of change. You're going to experience a whole lot of impermanence. So now you're like 2 weeks out from the event. And if you just stick with the decisions that you made 10 months ago and you don't update your decisions, you could be implementing an unwise decision. So you would like to understand your decisions are impermanent. You can modify your decisions. There's no harm in that. Sometimes we think if we make a certain decision, we can't change that decision. You can change your decisions. It's okay, right? If other people get angry because you change your decisions, they're causing their own anger. You haven't caused their anger. They're causing it themselves. So it would be very unwise to just cling to a decision from 10 months ago and implement it just because you're holding on to this decision. So the Buddha is teaching you, like, hey, your decisions are impermanent. You don't have to cling to these things. And then the same thing about the consciousness, the mind itself. There are certain aspects of the mind that you learn when you understand the universal truth of impermanence in non-self, that there are certain things in the mind that the mind's clinging to. But we won't go into that detail today. But some of you guys have studied that with me before, right? So the Buddha is saying what is impermanent is discontentedness, meaning that when you experience impermanence, you're going to experience discontentedness. If you think about your life, when things start changing in your life, this is where the stress and the anxiety comes in. When you change your living location, when you change your job, when you change your boyfriend or girlfriend, or you change friends, or maybe you've experienced some change, like maybe your mom or dad has passed away, or grandma or grandpa passed away. This is producing discontentedness because the mind craves permanence. So what the Buddha is saying is what is impermanent is producing discontentedness because your mind is craving permanence. You're craving for things to be permanent. What is discontentedness is non-self. This is another teaching that I've taught in other classes. I won't go into it in detail here because it takes me a little bit to teach that to you. But essentially what the Buddha teaches is that this body, it's not you. This mind is not you. And as long as you cling to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, you'll be frustrated when you see a mole or a pimple or a gray hair, or you spill something on your clothes. You'll be embarrassed because you want to be perceived by others in a certain way. But when you eliminate all of that, then you can get to the point where your mind's free and it's liberated. And then he says, what is non-self should be seen as it really is with correct wisdom. This is not mine. This I am not. This is not myself. So you need to be able to get to the point where you realize non-self, that you realize that this body nor this mind is you. Essentially, none of these aggregates are you. So when we say, like, if you say, I am angry, I am not angry because there's no I here. The mind is experiencing anger. That's what's truly happening. But you might be saying, I am angry or I am frustrated, but there's no I here. This anger isn't you. It doesn't belong to you. You can eliminate it because it's impermanent. It's the mind is experiencing anger because the mind has craving. And when you get rid of the craving, the mind won't experience anger anymore. So we use language in the unenlightened state that doesn't really represent true reality. And this kind of keeps your mind stuck in this lack of wisdom. So it's not that I am thirsty. It's the body needs water. That's what's truly happening because there's no I here. Right? It's not that I am hungry. It's the body needs food, right? That's really what's truly going on, right? But if you think I am hungry and I'm grumpy and I'm irritable because I need food, right? Now you're taking on all this emotion where you can just be like, the body needs food. Let's go find some food because the body needs some food. Let's go take care of the body, right? And let's go make our way to the restaurant and get some food. Now you can maintain your contentedness and joy because you understand that this body isn't permanent. It's not going to be permanently comfortable. You're going to experience discomfort in the body sometimes because it's impermanent. You can't be permanently comfortable. It's just not possible. So if every time your body is not comfortable, you get angry or grumpy or irritable, you're going to be grumpy and irritable all throughout your life, right? So you need to be able to understand that sometimes the body's going to be comfortable, sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable. And when it's uncomfortable, you can just make wise decisions to get the food, to get the water, whatever it is that it needs. No need to be grumpy and irritable in the process. That doesn't help you with anything, right? So the Buddha goes on more here, and we could talk about that. But basically, I'm going to skip down here, where basically what he's teaching you is when you eliminate these cravings, when you eliminate those, then the mind is steady. It's content. It's not agitated. You experience enlightenment. When you're eliminating craving, desire, attachment, the mind is now going to move into this peaceful mental state where it's always peaceful. It's always joyful. It's not agitated and frustrated any longer. And then once you get to enlightenment, then there's no longer going to be rebirth. One has destroyed the causes and conditions that lead to rebirth. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. You've trained the mind. You've accomplished what you need to accomplish. You're out of here. It's kind of like, peace out, brother. I'm gone. I'm out of this cycle of rebirth. See you later, right? You can just live the rest of your life in that peaceful and joyful mental state. No need to keep staying stuck in these discontent feelings over and over and over again. You can just be peaceful for the rest of your life. And then you know you're not going to be coming back to experience it over and over and over again, right? No need to stay stuck and miserable and feeling frustrated all the time. And then the Buddha says there's no more for this state of existence, meaning you're not going to keep coming back over and over and over again. Because while there's wonderful things about life and we look at the bright side and that's wonderful, we should do that. If you think about all the misery and the pain and the frustration that you've had in your life, you're not interested in repeating that. Why do it when there's a way to get out of here, right? I don't know if you guys know what an escape room is. They have these now. I've never been to one, but I've seen them online where you, like, a group of people go into this room and they lock you in the room. And then there's like all these clues that help you to be able to get out of the escape room. And you have to like find the keys and the combination and all this kind of stuff. And people do this for fun, right? They go get locked in the room and they have to put together all these clues and escape out of this room. Well, you're kind of like stuck in this room, this cycle of rebirth, and you've got to escape. And the Buddha's giving you the codes. He's giving you the guidance of how to escape out of this. And it doesn't have to be daunting and miserable and have a bunch of heartache. You can actually enjoy your journey to enlightenment and learning and growing and developing and training your mind and escape out of this, right? Because while it may be fun to be in life to a certain degree, it's a lot funner when you get to the peace and the joy. Because in the unenlightened state, you can only have fun when certain things are happening. When my mom does this, when my brothers and sisters do this, when my life partner does this, when my boss does this, when my bank account is like this, when the weather's like this, then I'll have fun, right? So your amount of fun is like really shrinking the more expectations that you put in your mind. But when you get rid of all that stuff, you can have fun all the time. And that's what it's like to be in the enlightened mental state. You're just always peaceful, always joyful, always having fun, no matter what you're doing. So you can escape out of this discontentedness. And the Buddha refers to it as liberation. I don't think he has that word in here. Oh, there it is. Yeah, he does. Liberated from the taints. The taints are the pollutions, the 10 fetters in the mind. So by the time you train your mind, you have been liberated. You've been free. You're no longer, the mind's no longer polluted. It's no longer held down. And now your mind is free. You're experiencing the peacefulness and the joy. You're free from those strong feelings, that burden of the anger and the loneliness and boredom that plagues the mind. So this is this particular chapter. Do you guys have any questions on this, either online or here at the temple? Okay, let me see. All right, I don't see any questions anywhere. All right. So what I'm going to do then is just in class here, we usually go up until about this time. In the evenings on Saturday, I study all 10 chapters that we have for that particular week. But in this class, I'm usually introducing some students. But in the evening, we tend to have a lot of students that have been studying with me for a really long time. And I teach this from home. If you'd like to learn any of the other chapters in the Pali Canon English study group, you could always join that program. It's all free. Everything I do is free. The books, the videos, the podcast, my personal guidance. I don't charge for anything that I do. I just help you guys to be able to learn the path to enlightenment. If you're interested in kind of getting a start and kind of starting from a foundational place, I would say join our group learning program where it's on Sundays and Wednesdays, and you can join that live. That's a really good place to start. And where you can't attend live, either online or in person, it's recorded. So you could actually watch the recordings. So you can download the books, you can be reading those, you can be attending the live classes, and you'll be able to gradually learn in the foundational programs, because as you gradually make your way closer and closer to enlightenment, you'll be able to see that the condition of your mind in your life is gradually improving. The Buddha is giving you the wisdom of how to do that. You perhaps can see through studying the original words of the Buddha that there aren't any rites or rituals or ceremonies or worship, even though you might see these things associated with the teachings of the Buddha wherever you kind of been exploring the teachings, that you might see people doing those kinds of things, particularly in a Buddhist country. You might even see rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. But the vast majority of the world isn't studying with the original words of the Buddha. And this is why we don't see massive numbers of enlightened beings in the world. So if you're interested in experiencing this enlightened mental state, if you study his original teachings and you're not doing those rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, because that doesn't lead to wisdom, you'll be able to slowly see your mind transforming. So even though you might have been exposed to those things and you might see those things in a Buddhist place, it doesn't mean that that's what the Buddha taught. You might think that everybody who teaches at a temple or everybody who wears an orange robe and shaves their hair, they must know the teachings of the Buddha, right? Well, that's just not the way it is, that there's so much impermanence in the world about the teachings of the Buddha that we're kind of at this low point in society where not many people really truly understand the teachings of the Buddha right now. And the Buddha predicted this during his life, that this would occur. So if you would like to study, you're welcome to do that. You can get to our website, buddhadailywisdom.com, and you'll be able to see the books and the videos and the programs and all the things to help you. And if you ever need help, you can always reach out to me through a live class like this. You can post into our Facebook group. You can send me private messages, or you can schedule personal guidance where we can sit down either in person or even online. We can meet in Zoom and we can talk about whatever challenges you're experiencing and how to use these teachings to be able to help you. So thank you guys for coming. Thank you for being interested to learn, and feel free to reach out as you'd like to learn more. And you're always invited to classes like tomorrow or Wednesday. I'll be teaching throughout those times. And then we have courses at different times that might interest you as well. And you're more than welcome to join those. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very wonderful and lovely day. Perhaps we'll see you next time. Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.